Russia is fighting a massive war in Ukraine. The country is under sanctions. And yet, it's using millions and millions of euros to launch Russia Today in Serbia, even with plans to expand it to TV in 2024. Isn't that strange? Why prioritize a media presence in a Balkan country over, let's say, thousands of bombs, missiles, or guns for your stupid war? Well, we'll find out. In this video, I will answer 3 questions. Is Serbia a Russian or EU ally, or maybe something else? Why is Serbia one of only 3 European countries that didn't sanction Russia? And 3, what is the future of this region? Is it with the EU or not? After this, I promise you will have a better understanding of this region than 99% of people, including most foreign journalists. So let's answer the first one. In many articles online and YouTube videos, you will hear that in recent years, Serbia has shifted away from the West and more towards Russia. This is not really true. And in fact, the opposite is true. Russian influence is weaker than it has been in the last 30 years. Let's see what happened after the invasion of Ukraine, and you will see for yourself. And I will be talking about the concrete things that happened, not simply like, oh, there was a protest for Russia, and oh, there was a protest for Ukraine. No, I want to talk about the decisions that the country of Serbia has made. First, Serbia voted against the Russian invasion every time in the UN. This is not something that it did in the past. In cases like this, the country would simply abstain, like many others did. Secondly, it openly funded Ukrainian humanitarian aid and donated ambulance vehicles to Ukraine. The country accepted Ukrainian refugees. Also, multiple times they've openly said that they support Ukraine's territorial integrity, not just over the Donbass, but over Crimea as well. And when the Russian Wagner group tried to recruit people from Serbia for their fight in Ukraine, they were banned. There are other things I could list, but I think you get the picture. No, Serbia has not been a Russian ally. In fact, it shifted further away from Russia than it has been in modern history. And if you don't believe me, or you think I'm cherry picking the data, well, here's a quote from the US ambassador in Belgrade. Serbia chose the West, and the Russian connection is getting weaker by the day. There is one point that can be brought as a counter-argument, and it's a valid one. Why hasn't Serbia sanctioned Russia? Along with Belarus and Turkey, it is the only country in Europe not to do it. So let's examine it. I would say that there are 2 main reasons. So the first argument is simple and very economic. Serbia is reliant on Russian gas, and sanctions would almost certainly mean significantly higher gas prices. While on the other hand, being one of the few countries without sanctions on Russia meant that it could negotiate a gas deal that is amazingly cheap. In a time of an energy crisis and high inflation, this is a major win for both industries and the hundreds of thousands of people in Serbia that rely on gas for heating their homes. Is this morally correct? I think you can make a strong case that it's not, but that will not be the focus of this video. I'm here just to tell you what happened and what the reasoning was. But the second reason is political, and I would say that it's the more important one. And for this, I'm actually going to take the time and explain Serbian politics to you in very simple terms, because I think it's necessary to understand a complex situation like this, and I don't want to simplify it. People, journalists, YouTubers, myself, we often simplify things. We treat countries the same way we would treat people. This country loves that country, this country hates this country, that's why they do something. But that's not the way things work. Countries don't really make decisions any more than a table or a tree does. People within a country make decisions. Usually those people are the politicians on top, the leadership. And politicians make decisions based on many different reasons and incentives, mostly the stuff that gets them re-elected. In most of Europe, sanctioning Russia was a clear choice. It was popular, it had the majority support. It would be very difficult not to do it. But in Serbia, this is not really the case. So let's look at them. Let's understand the leadership of Serbia and what are their motivations. The most powerful political organization in Serbia is the Serbian Progressive Party, by far. They are something called a catch-all party. They try to stay in the center, remain neutral, and try to get as many voters as they can. They do this by focusing on the economics, because that's something that pretty much everyone can agree upon. And with this, they have managed to have a lot of success. Lowering public debt, rising wages, and significantly lowering unemployment has led to them becoming the most powerful party in Serbia. But here is the problem. In the last year and a half, Serbia is experiencing high inflation, like most of the world. And although wages are rising, so is the inflation, so it evens out. People's living standards are not improving. And when your main claim to power is that you will make the economy better, that's a problem. Serbia had elections last year in 2022, and the Serbian Progressive Party actually lost seats to the right wing because they were seen as too much pro-NATO and anti-Russia because of the UN votes, the donations to Ukraine, all of that stuff we talked about. So that's the main reason Serbia is not sanctioning Russia. It's not even the cheap gas. It's politics. They're worried that if they do sanction Russia, they will lose ground to the right wing. The Serbian right wing really likes Russia. And notice that none of this is really coincidental. Some of it has to do with history and so on. And some of it has to do with the amount of work and money Russia has put into spreading their message here in this region. And this answers the question from the start. Why is Russia committing resources into funding its media in Serbia? It's possibly the only way they have to stop or slow down Serbia's shift to the West. It's also quite possible that investing $1 million into media gets you as much political leverage as $100 million in trade. So let's try to answer the final question. Where is all of this going? Well, it's impossible to say for sure. Many things could happen, but I believe that there are two possibilities. First, if the EU does a few things right, and maybe most important of all, manages to find an agreement between Serbia and Kosovo that is at least partially acceptable to both sides, it's very likely that Serbia will shift further and further towards the EU and eventually will become a member state. But there is a second possibility. You might think that the second option is Serbia becoming a Russian ally, but no, I don't think that's realistic at all with the amount of trade that Serbia has with the EU. The second possibility is Serbia simply staying neutral. And here we have a third player. In recent years, China has made a big push into getting as much influence in Serbia as they can. Big infrastructure projects, foreign direct investment, because if they pull this off, they could have a very friendly country almost in the heart of Europe. It's likely that the country will simply play the three sides against each other, trying to get as much as they can from each one without really being anyone's close ally. Now, I'm going to give you my opinion here. I think it is both in Serbia's and the EU's interest for the two to become closer and eventually for Serbia to become a member of the Union. Now, there are two perspectives here and multiple reasons. So let's talk about Serbia's perspective. First, on the economy. Playing both sides does sound tempting, and I think that there are regions where this might be the optimal strategy to get as much as you can for your country, perhaps in Eastern Africa or Southern Asia. But Serbia does not have that option. Playing both sides works only when they are on a similar economic or power level. This is not the case for China or Russia in the Balkans. That means that Serbia's economic development is tied to these countries. playing three sides against each other might be tempting in the short term, but it's obvious that in the long run, sustainable and significant economic growth is with the European Union. And recent years have also shown that. In the last 5 to 6 years, Serbian exports have doubled. And this is mostly to the European market, and in part thanks to European investment in the country. Now, I don't want this video to last 40 minutes and be about EU membership, so let's switch to the EU's perspective. And I think things here are quite clear. Of course, you would want Serbia to be your ally and eventually a member state. And not only for the cynical reason that if you don't do it, China will, and you will have a lot of Chinese influence and power on your doorstep, but also for the quite obvious positive reasons. There is so much opportunity and potential here. Potential for trade, for investment, for science and research cooperation, simply for people getting to know each other, working together, living in peace and stability, and so on. Look, I think Europe is at its best when it is ambitious and optimistic. And this is something that can happen. In the past, Europe has done this. Like the time they incorporated half of Eastern Europe into the Union in the span of 3 years. That's amazing. I think Europe needs to be ambitious again. I think it needs to be ambitious regarding the Western Balkans. Now, I'm not saying give everyone membership in a year and a half, but give them a perspective. And I think that this doesn't apply only for Serbia, but other Western Balkan countries and beyond. The EU should try to do more, try to be more. Who knows, in 20 or 30 years, we could be debating Russia's membership in the European Union. And of course, it would have to be a very different Russia and so on, but it's a possibility. Spain stopped being a fascist dictatorship in 1975, and 11 years after that, they joined the European Union. I'm not one of those people that goes on about how we need to learn from our past, but in this case, I think we do. I think this is a legacy that needs to be preserved. I really think that Europe can do most and achieve most when it's ambitious. Whoever you are, if you're watching this video, I think you're amazing. And I wanted it to be shorter, but there was a lot of stuff I also wanted to say, and I guess it ended up long as it is. Keep in mind that I could be wrong about certain things. I really do try my best, and this is an area where I at least think I have a lot of knowledge, but this is complicated stuff, and I'm just a random guy on YouTube. So feel free to do your own research. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments. I would love to hear it. I've actually made the decision regarding my channel, and this is gonna sound very ironic since this is a 15-minute video, but I've decided to make videos more often. I will try to get them out every 10 days, so 3 videos a month, and I will try to make them shorter. So, like I said, ironic. And look, the YouTube algorithm thinks that you would like these 2 videos next. So if you're curious, you can check them out. And if you like this one, consider subscribing. It really means so much to me. Hope you have an amazing day, whoever you are.